The topic which we are starting today is risk. We have discussed till now that there are two major important parts of investment, that is risk and return. Because there is no investment which is which is without or free of any kind of risk. We discussed that when usually the common mistake which an investor make is that he only looks for um, returns. He never looks what is the risk associated with that return. There are always two aspects of any investment strategy, like two sides of a coin. So, similarly, investments also have two sides, that is risk and return. So, it is very, very important when you invest in market, you should always see that how much risk is associated with this particular return. At times, people will tell you, like whosoever is like usually brokers or somebody who with whom you get your demat account open, or wherever you are investment, not maybe in stock market or any other area of investment, whosoever is proposing you that investment, that person will only show you the good sides, like this will happen, your money will double in this much of time, this will happen, that will happen, but they will never tell you how much risk is there, that it may not happen, what is the percentage of chance that whatever he or she is promising you, it may not happen. So when you invest in market, it is always very, very important to ask wherever you are investing that how much risk is associated with this particular investment, whatever you are offering me. Right. So, meaning of risk, as every investor invests in market with an expectation of earning something. Right. So, obviously, we invest with an expectation that the return will increase and with the hope of multiplying the investment. But the future is uncertain, and whatever is happening in the market, you may not do. You may not know that what will happen next. Today everything is fine, but tomorrow things may change, like instantly, within seconds, within minutes, market may change, because any unwanted situation may happen in the market and the whole scenario will change. So you never know what will happen. So always, see what is the risk aspect. Understanding risk in any form of investment is very, very important here. It is impossible for any investor to identify all the risk factors pertaining in the matter. So, obviously, we do not know what all risks are there. You can identify one, two, three types of risk. Like in current situation, also, if this pandemic has happened, nobody knew such kind of situation will happen. Last pandemic happened 100 years earlier, so nobody knew that what will happen next. So, any kind of uncertain situation may come into the market which you never knew that such a problem may also come, right? Any natural can be there, or any government change can be there, terrorist attacks can be there, maybe the country with whom you were dealing, the relationship with that country has changed a lot. So anything may happen at any point of time. So always, keep in mind that how to make your strategy. So it is impossible for anybody to identify all the types of risk associated with a particular investment. But we always try to play safe, right? Or we can, in other terms, we can say we always try to take calculated risk. We do not never take uncalculated risk, like investing blindly. One should never be, that careless when that person is investing money, his money, right? If we are investing somebody else's money, then we may become a bit careless. But when we are putting our own money, then obviously we become more careful, right? So there may be certain risky areas which may be left untouched by the investor, and ultimately it may cause a variation in returns. There are two things which we discussed, that there are two types of returns: expected return and actual return, right? So whatever the difference between expected and actual return is the risk associated. And we also discussed that, if we think that we have expected the return of, for example, 10%, and the actual return is 12%, then also it is not a good situation, because your predictions are not fine. When we, deal in market, or when we are doing financial analysis or financial research, important is not that situation is favorable. Important is accuracy, how much accurately you have predicted. So here precision, accuracy is more important than favorable situation, right? Because if you have predicted wrong, maybe even if you have earned more out of it, then also it is not a good situation. Your prediction should be more accurate. So expected return is a return which an investor may calculate. Now, how do we expect? We discussed this thing like how do we expect this return, that this security is going to give me 10% return. How do I analyze this? So there are certain parameters, few of the parameters I have just jotted down here, but there can be n number of factors. You can add on to any factor into this list. Like first, the foremost factor which may help you to understand how to calculate expected return is past returns. This is the simplest way to calculate, like studying past data. For example, if you ask what kind of questions will come in the exam, the simple answer I will give you: please see last year question paper. At least start studying last 5 years question paper. This is the simplest answer I can give you. Please see what is the pattern. Please understand what kind of questions come in the paper, and this is how every situation works. Like we say, na, history repeats itself. So the simplest way to predict something is to see past trends, to see the history. So what the company has performed in last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatsoever you want to take. So the simplest way is first seeing the past returns of the particular stock. Then the second thing we can do is past sales pattern. What is the sale of the product of a particular company? For example, you are investing in a company which deals in auto company, auto industry. So what is its sales? So the products of the company are getting sold in the market or not? Are they working on latest technology or not? So we will see that what is the past sales pattern. If sales is good, it means company's returns are good. If company's returns are good, it means they are going to give you good dividend, good returns. So this another simplest way to understand, to calculate expected return is seeing past sales pattern. Then third point we can see is past dividend policy of the company. So we also try to invest in companies which give good dividend to the investor, which give regular dividend, good and regular as well. So we try to invest in such companies. Like there are certain companies which have really created its goodwill in the market, like Tata. They have such a goodwill in the market that this is a company which works on very high moral values. So we try to, as a responsible investor, we also try to invest in such ventures, such companies which have good repute in the market. So this is how we choose our stocks. Then growth rate, what are their future plans? Like if the company has invested in such projects where growth rate is expected to be very high, they are having mergers and acquisitions with some more foreign companies, or they are expanding regularly, they are increasing, they are expanding, their product line is increasing, so we may choose such kind of companies who have good growth prospects. Then next is ratios, PV, present value ratios. There are like ratio analysis we do. So this we will also study how to do ratio analysis of particular company. So but obviously like net profit ratio and like any kind of ratio which you feel that this is an important ratio to study. If the company is having good net profits, companies having what is the debt turnover ratio, creditors turnover ratio. So such few analysis you can do. Then next is management of the company. Nowadays, when you invest in any company, you don't only see the quantitative aspect, but nowadays qualitative aspects has also become very, very crucial and important. Like what is the management of the company? Like a very simple example I will give you. When the CEO of any company changes, like and the investors have a lot of trust in the CEO of the particular company, then they start investing in such companies, right? So they feel that okay, this person is a trustworthy person, and this person is somebody who is going to take the company to next heights. Like when Vishal Sikka became the CEO of Infosys, so people had so much trust in that person that the stocks of the company was rising because people had trust in the company, in the person. So similarly, like if another example I'll give you, when Modi became president, prime minister for the first time, the Indian currency was appreciating at that time because other countries had a lot of trust in him. So that is why I'm saying that management of the company, the person who is at the top level positions, if that person has a lot of trust in the market, then the people would love to invest in such companies. Yeah. So then there are government policies also. So if you invest in a company where government support is there, so in such companies we tend to invest and the expected return is also high. So these are few of the factors which I have mentioned, which may help you to calculate expected returns. But of course, there can be n number of other factors also, like what is the bank rate, how much money flow is there in the market, in the economy. So there are n number of factors. What is the FDI rate in that particular industry, how many foreign players are there in the economy, who which like new players coming in the market. So there are a number of factors which may help you to understand the expected return. So important thing here is to be updated about the market. Start reading economics times so that you can know that this is what happening in this particular industry, this is happening here and there. So it can really help you to make right decisions about the investment plan, your investment policy when you pick a stock. So these, the news, current news, what is happening in the market will definitely help you to analyze like where to invest, how to invest. So be updated about the market. So even after considering n number of factors, there is a good chance that the investor may miss out certain factors because of the future uncertainty. So there will always be a gap between expected and actual or realized returns. And this gap is called the risk, because there would always be a gap. You cannot be actually always accurate about your expected return. There will be a gap, but important is that gap should be minimum, right? As minimum as possible. So accuracy is very, very important when you predict your returns. So moving forward, for example, A expected 10% return on ONGC stock and B has expected a return of 9%. Their risk expectation may vary because of their calculations on the basis of which they have expected a return. Because, for similar company, for example, two people want to invest in similar company, ONGC. So their return expectation may also vary. For example, A expect 10% return from ONGC and B is expecting 9% return from ONGC, because they have considered different factors. They don't know each other, they have calculated their own expected return, right? So it is not necessary that two people have similar expectations from a particular stock. So A may have considered only past. For now, how they have calculated this 10 and 9% return. For example, A may have considered only past returns, past sales and dividend policy of the company while calculating the expected return. So A has considered three factors. First is past returns, past sales, and dividend policy. On the other hand, B has considered past year's returns, past sales, dividend policy, as well as growth of the company and management of the company. So he has considered more factors. So because of these two additional factors, like what are their growth prospects and what is the how the management of the company is working, right? On the basis of these two additional factors, his expected return has been reduced, right? So it completely depends like how many factors you are including, or it may also happen, it might have also happened because of adding these two factors, this return could also be 12%. But no, maybe the company was not having good growth prospect, they were not having any good project in their hand, or the management of the company may not be performing well. That's why his expected return is less. But if these two factors were good enough, so maybe he could have expected 12% return. So it completely depends how you are predicting, what factors you would like to add on, or as per your understanding. Maybe A didn't know that these two factors are also very, very important. He didn't know, he just as you can see that A has only thought about the past information, but B is also looking for future prospects. He's seeing also qualitative aspects. So A considered only quantitative and past data, but B considered qualitative as well as quantitative and future also, not only past. So that's why his prediction is a bit different from A, right? So here the factors included by A were less and B, which ultimately affected their, then B, which ultimately affected their expected return. Now the return is different. Now the realized return. So A expected 10 and B expected 9, but actual return, the realized return of the company is 8% for the same stock. For this, we can understand that A has lost 2% return because A expected 10%, he's getting 8% return. A's expected return, I can just write here, A's expected return is 10 and the actual return is 8. So he's having a loss of 2%, right? Because he expected more. And the second person, B, B has expected 9%, but he also got 8%. So the loss for A, B is 1%, so which is a bit less than A. So, it completely depends, like what are we expecting and what we are getting. So it is very, very important to be, more precise about your uh, about the factors which you are considering to invest, right? So these factors are very, very important. So moving forward, risk is the probability of variation between expected and realized returns. This we have discussed, that risk is, what is risk? Risk is the difference between actual and expected returns, right? So moving forward, what are the elements of risk? Now we'll understand what are the elements of the risk. So there are two types of risk associated. The first one is systematic risk, okay, and the other one is unsystematic risk. So let us try to understand what are these two types of risk. So here, what is systematic risk? So as the society is dynamic in nature and there are a number of changes which keep on happening, right? So a number of changes which keep on happening in the economy, politics, social system and investor behavior. There are so many changes which keep on happening in the market, and these changes in different segment of the system affect the returns of the company. So it completely depends at what is happening in the market. And for example, the government of any particular country has changed, like overnight something has happened and the government has changed. So when new government will come, government will come with its own policy, like demonetization or any other new kind of policy. So such policies actually affect the businesses also, right? So, so here there are a number of changes which happen in the market, and it can really affect the investors. So any single thing which happens in the market, like political changes, change in economy, change in maybe there is some natural calamity. So these things are going to affect each and every industry in the market, right? Any industry, for example, any like nowadays there is pandemic. So this pandemic has affected each and every industry in some way or other. So any occurrence in the market which has affected the system as a whole, we call it systematic risk. So many of these changes are unrecognizable and cannot be predicted because of environment unpredictability. But one thing is sure, that these changes are system wide. So, always think that these changes, when the systems are unavoidable, you cannot stop that change. For example, natural calamity, pandemic, or maybe, government change or any war between two countries. You cannot stop these changes, and these changes are beyond your control. and these changes are going to affect each and every industry in the economy more or less. Maybe the the effect may be more for certain industries or less for other, but they're going to affect you, right? For example, stock market crash, any kind of problem. So these are called systematic risks, which are system wide. There, no company can remain untouched of these changes. Each and every industry company is going to get affected. The effect may be, the degree may be varying. For some companies it may be more or less, but it is going to affect. So such kind of risk are called systematic risk. They are uncontrollable. So such kind of risk are uncontrollable risk, and they are undiversified. So you, if you even if you have diversified your portfolio, right? Maybe you have different equities, IT and medicine, auto, banking, whatsoever. So you thought that if one stock may not perform well, other will give you good return. But in such a situation, because all the stocks have been affected, so these kind of risk are undiversifiable. You cannot escape from such kind of risk. So such risk are called systematic risk. So now this systematic risk also have certain parts. So let's discuss these parts one by one. Okay, so we are starting with interest rate risk today. So the first type of systematic risk is interest rate risk. Interest rate risk is the type of risk which particularly deals with debt securities and bonds. So, in very layman terms, if we say what is interest rate risk is, for example, you have bought a debt today, and the life of the debt is, as we know that debt is a kind of security which expires, which gets mature after a certain period of time. For example, the life of the debt is 10 years, right? And the interest for the interest which an investor may get for that debt is 10%, right? For 10-year debt, or a 10-year debt, and interest is coupon rate is 10%. Right. So 10%, what coupon rate you are getting today is the prevalent interest rate which is available in the market. So everybody, whosoever will buy that debt in the market, or any other company's debt from the market, any debt or bond, that investor will receive 10% interest rate, because that is the current market trend. This is the market benchmark for debt or bond. So you have bought that bond which is giving you interest of 10%, and the life of the bond is 10 years. But it may happen, for example, after 3 years, a new the market interest rate has reached a new height, and the new market rate in the market interest rate is, for example, 12%. So whosoever is going to buy the new bond after 3 years, they are going to receive how much? They are going to receive 12% interest, right? So that is the difference. So for example, you have also paid rupees 100 today, and you are receiving an interest of 10%. But there are other investors who are going to buy 100 rupees, who are going to pay 100 rupees for the bond, but they are going to receive 12%. So, as an existing investor in the market, you may feel bad, because obviously there is another bond in the market or debt in the market which is giving a better interest rate, right? So, I'll just write it here. So, today, 100 rupees bond at 10% for 10 years. This is these are the specifications on which any investor has bought the bond. Now, after 3 years, new set of bonds may come in the market, again rupees 100, for rupees 100 at 12% for 10 years. So obviously, those investors who have bought the bonds for 10% interest rate will not feel very happy. So what they will do, they will they will try to sell these bonds, the previous ones. So they will try to sell these bonds in the market so that they can buy these one, which are giving you a return of 12%, right? So investors would try to sell these bonds which are giving 10% return, and will try to buy these bonds which are giving 12% return. So obviously, if there is more selling for these bonds, then the price will go down. Price will go down, right? So the impact of market interest rate is the fall in the prices of the bond. So this is how interest rate risk exists in the market. So in very simple terms, we can say that there is an inverse relationship. We can say that there is an inverse relationship between market interest rate and bond prices, right? So if the market interest rate will increase, the bond prices will decrease. If the market interest rate will increase, the bond prices will decrease. So this is the kind of risk which exists in the market, that if there is increase in the market interest rate, the bond prices will decrease. So this is our first type of risk, that is interest rate risk. So the second type of risk is market risk. Market risk is another class of risk beared by the investors, and the market price of the shares would go up and down on the basis of what is happening in the market. At any point of time, whatever the market situation is, that market situation will definitely affect the stock prices, because whatever is happening in the market are going to affect the investors. For example, if we get any news in the market that a particular company, no, not any authentic information, like any random rumor also, right, that this particular company or this particular industry is going to suffer a lot, or maybe there is a change in the industry pattern. So investors may get affected by the news, and they try to sell the security, right? Or any kind of risk may happen. For example, you are holding stock of any particular company, and there is a news that the company is going to become bankrupt, right? So such kind of news are going to affect the investor behavior. For example, how investors are behaving in such a situation, they will try to sell the security. And if there is more selling in the market, it means more supply. People want to sell more, but there are no as such buyers. In such a case, the price of the security will go down. So here I have just talked about company specific issues, but there are n number of issues which are there in the market. For example, as I have mentioned, these factors may include industry life cycle. For example, industry has reached the maturity stage, so here the investors may feel like that they should sell the security. Or FDI, or maybe change in government policy. For example, government has increased taxes in a particular sector, and that's why company may, or that industry may suffer a lot of losses. So such kind of information, where that information is going to affect the market as a whole, like current situation is of pandemic, everybody is panicking, so such a situation is going to affect all the companies in the market. So this is what we call market risk, right? So market risk, basically, whenever a piece of information comes in the market, whether it is positive or negative, it is going to affect all the securities in the market. So market risk is basically whatever is happening in the market, not only Indian market or any particular stock market, but as we all are connected, we are not only investing in any particular stock exchange, we can invest anywhere, and all the businesses are interrelated to each other. If something is happening in US or in any part of the world, because we are trading with them, all the companies are having trade with some foreign currency, trade in some foreign currency, they will get affected somehow. So whenever any piece of information in world economy is coming, then of course they are going to affect the stock price or any particular stock. For example, something has happened in US stock market, it is going to affect Indian market as well. So these are called market risk, and with any kind, such a risk is also called systematic risk, because we are discussing about systematic risk, which is going to affect all the companies in the market, not only a particular company, but all the companies and all the industries in the market, right? So this is called market risk. This is second type of systematic risk. The first one was interest rate risk. For second one is market risk. So the third one is purchasing power risk. This is another kind of systematic risk which affects the return of the investors due to inflation. So in purchasing power risk, inflation plays a major role. Due to high inflation, the purchasing power of the investors will decrease. When an investor buys a security, he forgoes his present consumption with an intention of buying in future after earning a significant return from the market. So basically, for example, if you are investing in any kind of investment avenue, either stock market or any other kind of investment avenue, the major purpose is that after some time, when the security will mature, you will earn something out of it and you will be able to buy whatever you want to buy. So here, let us consider an example where Mr. A wants to buy a house worth rupees 1 CR, but at present he has only 90 lakhs with him. So he has invested in the stock market with an expectation to grow his money up to 1 CR. So he's having 90 lakhs with him, but he wants 1 CR to buy a house. So he has invested 90 lakh, yeah, anywhere, not only in stock exchange but anywhere. So he has invested the stock in the stock market with an expectation to grow his money up to 1 CR. But after 1 year, the inflation rate in the economy has also increased, and the house is now for rupees 1.15 CR. So, he has invested in the stock market to make his 90 lakhs 1 CR, but still the house is out of his reach, because he has made 90 lakh 1 CR, but the house is now 1.15. So whenever you invest in the market, always think about the inflation rate. Are you able to match up with the inflation? So your investment should always be able to match up with the inflation rate in the market. So there are two types of inflation in the market. First is demand pull inflation, and the second is cost push inflation. So demand pull inflation comes when people are demanding more. Actually, there is no actual reason of the increase in the price, but people have more money, so they are demanding and demanding about a particular good. So that's why the demand has increased. There is no as such reason, right? But second kind of inflation is cost push. Such kind of inflation arise because the raw material cost has increased. That is why inflation has been there, because the product has actually become quite expensive, right? So in demand pull inflation, there is no as such increase in the price of the good, but only because of demand the price has increased. But in case of cost push inflation, the raw material cost has actually increased. That's why the product is now expensive. So whenever you invest in the market, one should always see about the inflation rate. The investment should cover, for example, if there is inflation of 10% in the economy, your return should be at least 15%, so that you can earn something out of it, right? So this is called purchasing power risk. Now, the unsystematic risk is the kind of risk which is not system wide and specific to any particular company only, right? For example, ABC Limited is facing a problem of labor strike, because of which the problem is getting delayed and gross profit and net profit of the company in that particular quarter has reduced. And ultimately, it may affect the stock prices of the company. As we understand that this is a company specific issue and it has nothing to do with the market as a whole. So such a problem is only related to that particular company, because the labor of that particular company is not behaving in a proper way, or maybe there is some dissatisfaction among the labor. So it has nothing to do with the economy as a whole. This is a very very company specific issue. Now the company has to take corrective measures to resolve the issue. In such a case, the investors can switch to other companies and safeguard their returns. So if you have such a company in your portfolio where the management is not working properly, or there are lockouts, or there are any other kind of problems, so as an investor, what I can do, I can withdraw my investment from such a company and I can invest somewhere else. I can earn something out of it. So here, if I want to avoid such kind of risk in the market, so what I can do here is I can make a diversified portfolio. So that is why I should make a portfolio where there are a number of companies. If one company is not giving good return, I can earn something out of any other company where I have invested. So the basic difference between systematic risk and unsystematic risk is, systematic risk is not avoidable. You cannot avoid it because every company is facing such a problem. But in case of unsystematic risk, you can switch to another security. You can withdraw your money from such a company where there are problems, company specific problems. So unsystematic risk can be avoided if we diversify our portfolio. But systematic risk cannot be overcome with the help of diversification of portfolio, right? So diversification is when you invest your money in different companies, not only in one or two companies, right? So this is called unsystematic risk. Now there are two types of unsystematic risk. First is financial risk. So what is financial risk? Every company deals in a particular economic environment. It deals with both internal and external environment. In business risk, we particularly talk about the capital structure of the company. So what is capital structure? Capital structure is basically the ratio of debt and equity in the company. How much debt is there, how much equity is there. So capital structure of the company is basically debt and equity ratio. If the company has more of debt in their capital structure, and because of which they have to pay fixed interest rate to its debt holders, whether the company is earning or not. Such kind of risk where the company has to pay fixed return, they are earning returns or not, is called business risk. For example, you the capital of the company is, for example, 1 lakh rupees, right? Just write it. 1 lakh rupees. This is the capital of the company, out of which, for example, 30,000 is equity and remaining 70,000 is debt. Okay, so this is debt. Now, for example, in year one, the company has suffered losses. Your company has suffered losses and it has not earned anything. Now the company is not liable to pay these 30,000 equity shareholders, because in case of equities they are not answerable. In case they are having losses, they are not liable or answerable to equity shareholders because they have not earned something this year. And equity shareholders are basically the owners of the company. They have ownership right. So to these 30,000 equity shareholders, they don't have to pay anything. But these debt holders are not owners of the company. They are, people who have given a kind of loan to the company. So, for example, debt at 10%. So, 10% of 70,000, it means they have to pay this much of amount to the debt holders. So they have to pay 7,000 whether they have earned or not. They have to pay. So this is called business risk. Even if you are not earning something, then also you have to pay your debt holder. So the company which is having more debt in their capital structure, they suffer financial risk, right? So this is called financial risk. Whether the company is earning profit or not, they have to pay their debt holders, and this is a fixed expense. They have to pay it. And financial risk is basically related to debt equity ratio. So in such a case, it becomes companies' responsibility to become more rational. They must use their debt equity ratio in such a way that, even if they are having losses, so they should go for, more of equity. But it depends. For example, the business is quite a secure one. For example, somebody is investing in a business where short return is guaranteed. So where sure shot return is guaranteed, sure return is there, then company should have more of debt in the capital structure, right? But if the project is risky, for example, they are not sure whether they are going to earn good returns every year, or maybe the project has promised good return after 2 or 3 years, right? In case of risky projects, company should have more of equities in the capital structure. Okay, so where project is not that risky, company can go for more debts. But in case the project is risky, then the company should go with equities, because even if they will earn losses, they will suffer losses. Sorry, they will suffer losses. They don't have to pay to debt holders, because equity shareholders are partners in the company. If the company is not earning good returns, they cannot claim returns. They cannot claim dividend. But debt holders will always claim interest. So this is financial risk. So how the company is choosing the capital structure is going to, really affect the future of the company. So the second type of risk we have in unsystematic risk is business risk. So business risk is the risk when we have more of fixed operating payments, whether we are having earnings or not. For example, Mr. A has to pay the rent of the factory for 1 year, but the operations are conducted only for 8 months. This usually happens in case of seasonal products. For example, there is any seasonal product where the production actually happens for 8 months, but obviously, if you are taking any factory on rent, you have to pay for 12 months, because you cannot pay for 8 months. You have to earn this much in 8 months that you can pay the rent for 12 months. So, for example, maybe Mr. Ram deals with summer clothing and he owns a factory where production of summer clothing is done. He has to earn profit of 12 months in just 8 months so that he can bear the rent of the remaining months. Such kind of risk is called business risk, or we can also call it operating risk, where there are fixed expenses which we have to pay, business operating expenses, rent, or any other kind of fixed expenses which we have to pay other than debt and equity, right? Because when we talk about debt and equity, it becomes financial risk. But when we talk about any expense related to the operations of the company, it becomes business risk, right? So if we have such fixed expenses to pay throughout the year, even if we are not earning throughout the year, such risk is called business risk. Because maybe the fashion has changed now, he is not having good sales in the market of his clothing brand. So such risk will always be there in the market. So this is called business risk. So overall, we have discussed two major types of risk. That first one was systematic risk, under which we have covered interest rate risk, then we covered market risk and purchasing power risk. This is systematic risk. And the second type of risk we have is unsystematic risk. The first one is financial risk and the second one is business risk. Now, next thing which comes to us is how to calculate risk, measurement of risk. Now, this is something important which we are going to start today. So, any rational investor would always invest in securities with a predetermined return and risk associated with it. So, as we have discussed that, always, invest in a security where both risk and return. Do not invest only on the basis of return. Always see what is the risk associated. So here the quantification of risk is very crucial, and an impactful investment plan would involve more precise qualification of risk and return associated with the stock. So it is very, very important that the risk should be quantified in a proper way, so that you must know that how much risk is associated with the investment. So let us try to understand how risk is calculated. So let's understand this concept of risk and return with the help of an example. Suppose a share is currently traded in the market at rupees 130. So the market price of the share here you can see is 130, right? This is the market price of the share. The shares also promise to pay rupees 10 as dividend. So the stock price is 130 and the dividend which is going to be paid by the company is rupees 10 in the next year. The expected selling price is 190. So if an investor is going to buy the share today, he's going to buy it at rupees 130. He's going to receive 10 rupees dividend this year and he's going to sell the share at the end of the year at rupees 190. So it means how much he is earning, 10 rupees dividend and how much extra, 190 minus 130. It means 60 rupees extra he is going to earn, right? 60 here and 10 here, 70. He's going to earn 70 rupees. Hence, the expected return of the share can be calculated as following. So, how we are going to calculate? So, here I am writing return, forecasted dividend 10 rupees, forecasted end price of the stock 190 and current market price is 130 minus 1. So, when you will calculate it, the return is 53%. So, he is going to earn 53% return if he is going to invest in such a security. This is return. In present case, 53% is the expected future return associated with stock. But the future is uncertain. Now, companies promising a return of 53% or the investor has calculated that my expected return. We can never say this with surety that the company is going to pay a 53% return because this 190 future price is expected future price. You don't know exactly what will happen after a year. Maybe some tragedy has happened or some market crash has happened. Maybe the company is not going to give you 190 rupees, right? So you cannot always say this with 100% surety that this is going to be the return because anything can happen. Market is uncertain, so there are risks associated. So how do we calculate risk? The expected dividend or the future price of the stock may turn out to be either more or less than the predicted value. So it is crucial to assign probability with the expected return. So here what I have to do is I have to calculate what is the probability that I am going to earn 53% return. This I have to undergo and this I have to calculate. Now let us understand with the help of an example, very simple example we are going to discuss today. So see here, possible returns in percentage. What is the return? 10%, that you are going to earn 10% return when you invest in the stock. What is the probability? There are 20% chances that you are going to earn 10% return. Then 20, there are 30% chances that you are going to earn 20% return. There are 35% chances that you are going to earn 30% return. 30% chances that you are going to earn 40% return. 20% chances that you are going to earn 50% return. 15% chances that you are going to earn 60% return. There are 10% chances that you are going to earn 70% return. So if you observe this question, this example, you will observe that as return is increasing, the probability of occurrence is decreasing because it is being too optimistic that I'm going to earn 70% return. It is being too optimistic. So the probability of 70% return is only 10%. Right, and similarly like in this question we have calculated that there may be 53% return. So we can say this is around 50 or 53 you can say. So there are only 20% chances that the investor is going to earn 50% return. So what is the risk? How we are going to calculate the risk and return? So first we are just calculating return, then we'll discuss how to calculate risk also. So here you see 10% possible return. Now this is the possibility of occurrence. Now I will multiply possible returns with possibility of occurrence. So 10 into 0.20, it comes 2. 20 into 0.30, it is 6. 30 into 0.35, it is 10.5. 40 into 0.30, it is 12. Then 50 into 0.20, it is 10. 60 into 0.15, it is 9. And 70 into 0.10, it is 7. So the total here is, what is the average return? This is 56.5. So this is the probable return, expected return from the stock, right? This is expected return. Now I have to calculate what is the risk associated. So, risk we calculate, this is also called average. We have calculated average. Now, how do we calculate risk? The simplest way to calculate risk is by calculating standard deviation or variance. Now, what is standard deviation? Standard deviation is the variance from mean value. Right. Now, I'll just try to, make you people understand in very simple terms what is standard deviation. For example, there are 5 students in a class and they have secured few marks out of 20. So 12, 15, then 16, then maybe we have 17, and then we have 13. These are the marks of 5 students. In a class, we have only 5 students and these are the marks of 5 students. So if I say what is the average marks of the students, so what I'm going to do, I'll calculate its mean, like we have calculated this mean value, no? So similarly, I'll just calculate the mean. So 12 plus 15 plus 16 plus 17 plus 13. 73. So 73 divided by 5. So average marks is 14.6. Right? This is average marks. Average marks. Now I have to calculate the standard deviation or risk. Standard deviation. Now to calculate standard deviation, if you see this 14.6 is quite far away from 12. So 14.6 minus 12. There is a gap, right? 14.6 minus 12, it is 2.6, right? Then there is, next student has secured 15, so 14.6 minus 15, right? So this is 0.4. So the deviation from mean value, this is your mean value. The deviation from mean value is called the standard deviation. The deviation from mean value is called standard deviation. The more far away the mean value from actual values, higher the standard deviation or risk, right? So if standard deviation is a larger term, larger value, it means risk is higher. So similar thing we are going to do with the stock returns. So this part we have already done, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. These are the possible returns, and the possibilities of occurrences are also given to us, 20, 30, 35, 30, 20, 15 and 10. Now what I'm going to do, I have calculated this mean value 56.5, the average return. So I'm going to calculate the deviation. To calculate deviation, I'm going to subtract the actual value minus the mean value. So 10 minus 56.5 is 46.5. This 20 minus 56.5 is 36.5. 30 minus 56.5 is 26.5 and so on. So this is how I have calculated deviation. Now if you can see, few of the deviations are negative, right? Now I have to remove these negative values. So that's why what I will do, I will calculate the square of deviations. So 46.5 into 46.5 is 2162.25, And similarly, I have calculated squares of all the deviations. So these minus values, this minus 46.5 has converted into a positive value. So this I have calculated the deviation square. Now after calculating deviation square, what I will do, I will multiply these deviations with the probability, because probability is very, very important here. What is the probability that I'm going to earn this much? So, you know, in whenever you calculate risk and return, the probability is the most important part. What is the chance? What is the percentage of chance that this may happen? For example, I'm tossing a coin. Whether the head will come or tails will come, there are 50-50 chances, right? So similarly, when we invest in any stock, this is the return I'm going to get. There has to be a probability assigned to it. Without probability, you cannot calculate risk and return. So this 2162.25 into 0.20 is 432.45. Then 1332.25 into 0.30 is 399.67. So I have calculated all the deviation into probability. So the answer I have obtained is 1188.70. So this 1188.70 is your variance, but I'm going to calculate standard deviation. So standard deviation is square root of variance. So here we got 34.47. So to earn 56.5% of return, to earn this much of return, we have to bear a risk of 34.47. It means approximately we can take it as 35%, for example. So there is 65% chance, right? Opposite. There is 65% chance that you are going to earn 56.5% of return. This is the probability, right? So this is how we have calculated risk and return. And this risk and return is under unsystematic risk. This is what we have calculated, unsystematic risk. So to calculate unsystematic risk, we need to calculate standard deviation or variance. And this is how we calculate risk.